And let's bring on the one and only Cherie Aimée.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everyone. All right, I did the dancing already a little earlier, so if you missed it. This is really special for me. So I'm going to try to keep it together as I share this story, because past several days, you all have become family. And Brandon, I really have a whole new level of respect and appreciation for you, because everybody in this room actually reflects who you are. And the quality of people in here, like, there's no words. I kept going back to my hotel room last night and saying, wow. All of you are incredible, like incredible. And I really hope each and every one of you understand that and know that every single one of you has something really, really special to offer the world. So don't hide that. I really feel all of your hearts. I love your passion. And for me to be standing up here, not just in front of Brandon, who's been a huge support for me this year, 2017, with even accelerating my brand to the speed that it has. He's been a huge support for that. So thank you, Brandon. But because of this connection I feel with you guys now, I'm challenging myself to really open up even more with you guys, more than I probably normally would at a business or entrepreneurial convention. So we'll see what comes out. I really kind of tune into everybody's hearts, and I kind of just share intuitively. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation, which I'm not really comfortable having one, because everything really just does come from my heart, but it's good because it'll keep me on track. But a lot of this is going to be me taking you on a journey. And what I really want you to do is, the first thing I would love for you guys to do is to just close your eyes for just a few minutes. And I just kind of want to get everybody on the same page right now. So I want you to take a couple of deep breaths in and let it out. We've all had an amazing couple of days. Our creative juices are flowing. The relationships that we've built have been really priceless. We're all excited to get back and really put into action all these new goals, all these exciting plans, all these new exciting partnerships. We're excited to put those back into place. But for right now, and for the next hour, I just want you to kind of tune into your heart, and I want you to just listen to my voice. I'm not a very loud speaker, but my heart is really big. And so a lot of what you're going to hear today is my heart. And although I'm going to be sharing with you my story, I want you to actually ask yourself this one question. If you were given a chance, a second chance at life to just do everything all again, how would you live your life? If you actually had everything stripped from you, your relationships, your business, your job title, everything that you identified as who you are, if that were all stripped suddenly from you, and by a miracle you had another chance to do it all again, to right all the wrong, to correct the mistakes that you had, if there were fears that you once had, this could be your chance to actually push through those fears and do it again. I want you to keep that in mind as I share my story, because this is really a journey of the soul. So you can open up your eyes. My name is Cherie Aimée. I'm a near-death survivor. I'm a heart transplant recipient. I'm currently board of directors of the Transplant Forum at Columbia University Medical Center in New York City. I'm a brand ambassador for New York Presbyterian Hospital, which is the hospital that saved my life. I'm a VIP partner, contributor to Influensive. You got to hear Brian D. Evans up on the blockchain panel the first day. So I've joined forces with them beyond just being a contributor. And I'm also actually a brand ambassador for several other companies and programs and services. This year alone, I was able to achieve all of this. I landed on the top 25 most influensive influencer list 2017, top 40 millennial influencers to follow for 2018, and I'm not even a millennial. So that's a big, big honor that I don't take lightly, and you'll soon see why. All this press and media all came about by one decision that I made, and that was that for 2018, I was actually going to put full 110% focus on building relationships, networking, and developing my press and media. So I made a commitment, and then I just made it happen. So, my history. After college, I started exploring different types of businesses. I really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I ended up stumbling into the tech startup world. So not to age myself, but this was around the time of the tech bubble in the late 1999 and 2000. So those of you that have heard of the bubble burst, the tech bubble burst, I was around for all of that. I was around for the rise and the crash. I was self-taught as a programmer. I learned by getting my first job of a tech startup company, and I thought I knew how to program because I just learned from a book. And then I got to this job, and they gave me my first assignment to build like a couple $100,000 website. And I realized I actually did not know how to code at all. And I panicked. There was my first assignment sitting on my desk, and I had no idea how to build it. And I had two choices. I could panic, or I could come up with a solution. And the panic side of me would have just said, let me just walk right into my boss's office and tell him, I don't know how to do this. You've hired the wrong person, so I'm going to have to quit. You need somebody else. And something in me just couldn't do that. I couldn't quit. So that night, in full-blown panic, like full-blown panic, I went to Barnes & Noble's and I ordered every book on programming. And I knew my assignment started the next day. So I came up with this plan and just said, Cherie, breathe. Just breathe. And I took this stack of books and I sat down at my desk and I looked at the assignment. And I said, okay, somehow I have to build this site. Now, this is before WordPress. This is pure coding, the stuff that you guys don't see. All right, this is behind the scenes building of what now WordPress and all that does for you. So I looked at the assignment and I said, okay, here's the full-blown website. You know, it was all designed, and somehow I needed to be the programmer to actually make that happen on the internet. So I started with just a corner of the site, and I said, somehow I need to build the corner of that site. So I took 3 books at a time, and I would go to the bathroom. And I would sit down, and I would go to the back of the books in the index section. And I would say, like, I need to build a table. And I would just go to that section of the index, get the page numbers, and I would read all the page numbers that actually told me how to do one specific thing. And then I'd go back to the desk, and I'd try it out. I'd fail. I'd try it again. And eventually, I would figure out how to do the table. And I did that for the next 2 months, trying to build this massive, 50-page site from scratch. 2 months later, I became their top producing coder, to the point where they ended up giving me every single site that came through, because they knew my coding was top-notch. They knew that other companies could take my code and easily, I had clean code, what we call it. Other people could come in, edit my code if it needed to be, revise it. But literally, I learned how to code in the bathroom. Because of that, when the dot-com bubble busted, I was one of 2 programmers left standing after the company had grown to 300 people. So it was me, one other back-end programmer, the CEO, 1 account person, and maybe 1 designer. I had to watch while all the rest of my friends and all the other tech senior programmers got their pink slip, and I was left standing. The girl that learned on the bathroom toilet. I ended up taking those skills, and I became a well-sought-out programmer from all across the country. I ended up working for Microsoft for a little bit. So I was lived in Seattle for the summer, and I did some programming for them. I worked for different engineering firms, one in a huge, massive military engineering firm in Austin, Texas. Different technology firms, different banking firms. So I had quite a bit of experience in corporate. I eventually had an opportunity to come back to the East Coast and start working for what would be the beginning of digital marketing in the advertising world. So I took all these years of experience in technology, in corporate America, and I flew myself back and jumped straight into a very fast-paced advertising, branding, and marketing world where you just did not sleep. And you worked on major sites from, Hellmann's Mayonnaise, Dove Beauty Bar. So we had big clients, Unilever, Heineken, Pedigree, all projects that would eventually be mentioned on the Oprah Winfrey Show. So when you want to talk about stress, everybody's heard of the Oprah Winfrey effect, which is when somebody gets their book mentioned on Oprah Winfrey or their website, and if you're not prepared, your site will crash, right? Because it's the Oprah effect. Whatever she mentions, it's just going to sell out and explode. So the pressure of the people behind the scenes was real. A lot of pressure. You didn't sleep that night because what if it was my code that broke and the site went down, right? So that's the pressure and the stress and the background that I come from. So everything has to be quadruple checked and you're not sleeping, you're praying, and you work very tightly with multiple teams. During that time in advertising, what I ended up doing was, I guess it's just my personality. I just don't want to know my job. I want to know how everybody does their job. So I used to actually go around and, I was pretty social. So I would just meet different people, kind of like we're doing here this weekend. And I would meet the designers and I'd be I'm building the coding part of it. How are you building the front end? How are you doing the design work? And I would sit down with them and I'd be like, how did you make that title? how did you make that background graphic there? And I would sit down and I would do that with the copywriters, the designers, the lawyers, right? Because we had copywriting going all out. And so I would get it back as a programmer and it had all these red chicken scratches all over it. So eventually I wanted to know, why did you cross off that registration mark? Why is it only allowed like first and then you don't need it for the rest of the document? I needed to learn everything. And there was no grand plan. That's me. I'm very, very curious. So I did this for all different job roles while I was in advertising, to the point where I ended up becoming a project manager as well. And I managed about 14 different teams, each about probably 15 people. So again, this was the nature of being in the beginning. I don't even know what it's like there now, but this was a new field. So you did not sleep. You were doing the work of, probably 5 people. And, but it forced me to learn really fast. So what I did was I ended up jumping between the tech team and the project management team whenever I got bored. So I could be a programmer for a year, and if I got bored or burnt out from that, I was actually now able to be a project manager because I understood every single part of digital marketing. I took those skills and I later started my own tech firm. The tech firm blew up overnight, faster than I could have even dreamed of. And everything was going well. I had about 20 people working for me. This was my dream come true, running my own business, being a female lead tech developer, right? Yeah, thank you. I was really on top of the world. I was newly engaged, and I was about to get married. And 2 months after my beautiful, gorgeous fairy tale wedding day, which was in October 2008. Beautiful fall weather in New England. The leaves had changed color. It really was a fairy tale. It happened to be 75 degrees, which is not normal for fall weather. But 2 months later, I found out I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a rare form of cancer, but they call it the cancer that you would want to get if you were going to get cancer, because it's something like 98.9% curable. But you can see how here I was at the top of my world, female tech CEO, with 20 people, working for me. I'm new. There was no Grant Cardone or no online business leaders I was following. I was new, and I was by myself running, a tech firm. So when this happened, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. For 2 months, we kept it a secret. You want to know why? Because I didn't want to ruin anybody's Thanksgiving or Christmas. Isn't that crazy? So I had to hide it from everybody, my family. I had to hide it from my company. I'll never forget going to a Christmas party for my husband's company. And I remember sitting there, and at one point, my eyes just started tearing. And I thought, wow, I might not be sitting here next year. And I just remember being so angry. And I was like, I did everything right. I was a really good person. I was really kind. I worked really hard in school. I ate so well. Like, everybody came to me for health advice. I did Bikram's yoga 3 times a week. I did everything right. And my head started beating myself up. Like, you failed. You're such a failure. And the worst part of it all was everybody around me had been so into the holistic health field, kind of when it first really blew up on the scene, to the point where everybody around me was the complete extreme, where that diagnosis made me damaged goods. So guess what happened? My best friends abandoned me. My family denied I had cancer. They denied it, and then they went back and forth between saying I caused it because I chose to get a biopsy. That was my environment when I was diagnosed. Because the lady that had built up this tech firm, that had brought in the money, that had paid for people's vacations, that was always there with an open door to hear everybody's problems, that always gave selflessly, you could no longer depend on me now, because in your mind, I was gonna die. It was painful. I underwent 6 months of chemotherapy. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. There's no words for the 4 chemo drugs, the 6 months, and the side effects that I've had to go through. There's no words. I would not wish that on anybody. And then to emotionally be trying to manage everybody else's emotions around their ideas of cancer and me no longer being their go-to person was painful. Painful. And I tell everybody, despite the horrific side effects I went through, more painful than the physical issues was the emotional. Hands down, it was the emotional. I finished up treatment. My last treatment was on my birthday, June 18th. And I was so happy. I survived. I was cancer-free. I was back in control of my life. And I was able to get back to drinking my smoothies and doing some light yoga and really working to rebuild my life. This was my second chance. This was my second chance. I beat cancer. Now I get to get out there with a whole new perspective on life. I understand now what it means to be a cancer patient. I understand now what it means to have to deal with other people's reaction to cancer instead of my own, right? That's huge. So I had this whole new awareness for a whole other population that's going through this and still going through this. This was my life awakening, or so I thought. 8 months later, out of the blue, I had trouble breathing. This went on for 3 weeks. No doctor would see me. The emergency room never fully checked me out. And I knew something was terribly wrong. There was an intuitive sense that something is not right in my body. I didn't know what it was, but I said, no human feels like this. This is not a normal feeling. You know, sometimes you're like, oh, this is my stomach, or I think my knee hurts. This was a feeling that the only thing I can describe is that it's just not normal. And when nobody believed me, from my family to the doctors to the emergency room, there I was again, alone, and nobody believing me. And I finally sat myself down and I said, you know what, Cherie? I think you're dying. I think you're dying. And there's nothing you can do about it. You know? They don't believe you. So what are you fighting for? And then began this journey of me just coming to peace for the next 2 weeks, just coming to peace. Like, this is it, you know? I got my good grades. I was a straight A student. I went to a top college, worked my way through corporate America, built myself up, top female tech CEO. And what was it all for? What did I get out of being the best programmer, building sites for mayonnaise? Do you know what I mean? Was that my life? And I remember just starting to come to peace, and I was like, yeah, this is it, you know? And I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'm scared, but I can't talk to anybody. So it's just me, myself, and my higher power. So the next couple of last days, I would say, I was scared. And the only real thing I could do was I could go to my meditation teacher, who I didn't know too well at the time, but I had started going to her weekly meditation because I was in such a stressful state that what else was I going to do? And I went to her. She happened to have an opening the next day, which was a miracle. She normally never sees somebody the next day. And I walk in, and I sat down, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I just burst into tears, wailing at the top of my lungs, like almost like some cultural ceremony. That kind of deep wailing from the depths of my soul. And she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I messed up. I messed up." That's all I could say is, I messed up. And she's like, what did you mess up? I don't understand. I said, I did everything wrong. I did everything wrong. And all my thoughts were happening so fast that I couldn't communicate it. Because in that moment, what was happening was I was having this download of the whole of life and the whole of why we're here and our existence and the full-blown effect of regret. Of regret because I had just been downloaded with the ultimate truth of our existence and how I had put a mayonnaise site ahead of my health all those nights till 3 a.m. How I had put other people's needs ahead of my own for so many years. How I had dealt with so many people who were just jealous of me, jealous of the success I was achieving. I stayed around those people. We all know how unhealthy that is as entrepreneurs. But I didn't know enough. I didn't have people like you around me. I thought I had to just be in that. You know, I didn't have a community like this. And all those regrets, I cannot believe. I cannot believe I surrounded myself by people who were so judgmental about how I ate. And in this moment, I had realized it wasn't about eating healthy. If you're eating healthy out of guilt, if you're eating healthy because everybody else is putting that pressure on you as if you're not good enough if you are not eating like them. And that applies to every area of life, how you run your business, how you run your life. Think of every decision you make and the people that don't approve of you. That was downloaded into my system instantly. And so when you hear about the top 10 regrets of the dying, I had it that day. I had it. I can tell you what it's like to die. I can tell you what it's like to have that last moment of regrets. When I went home that night, I had a little beagle, and I said to my husband before I went to sleep, I wasn't feeling well, and I said to him, promise me you will take care of my beagle should something happen to me. You already know that. You already know that. No, I need you to tell me again. Okay, I promise you, should something ever happen to you, I will take care of Snoopy. Thank you. And I went to bed that night staring at my beagle, and I cried myself to sleep. That's the last thing I remember. I died the next day. I found myself in the ICU. I woke up about a week later, and I thought I was in a car crash. My entire body felt like I had been run over by an 18-wheeler. You know what my first thought was? Is the other person okay? I thought I had killed somebody. That's all I thought about. Who did I hurt? I must have hurt somebody so badly because I feel like I've been crushed. And my husband said, you didn't hurt anybody. You weren't in a car crash. It was your heart. My heart had failed. That next day that I don't remember, apparently I woke up, and a few hours later I said to my husband that my arms felt heavy. And he rushed me to the emergency room, and within 10 minutes, I died in his arms. During that time where my heart flatlined, the doctors were unable to resuscitate me for over 90 minutes. They attempted to call my time of death within 5 to 10 minutes, and one doctor in that room said, no, we're going to keep going. One doctor. And he ordered everybody. The hospital had never seen anything so bad that the staff actually did not know what to do at this point. So he had to order everybody, you need to do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, you get on her chest, and you keep pressing. I had compressions for so long that they shattered my ribs, which ultimately punctured my lungs, and I had internal bleeding. During that time, I had what medical researchers call a near-death experience. And I experienced what it's like to actually cross over. I remember saying, oh, I died. That's where I am. That's a whole journey that's been written in some of my books. So I'm not going to get into the full details of what happened when I died, even though I know you guys are like, what happened? Tell us now. But I had a whole experience, and it's why my story has been published and picked up by press. It's why I'm published in different medical journals. I ultimately had, I had a 0% chance of living. And my near-death story is so extensive that it's rare. It's rare for anybody to have the account that I did in heaven. So my story is known for two things: my incredible near-death experience and what happened to me in the afterlife, but also because to save my life took hundreds of doctors from around the world. It took one of the top institutions for cardiothoracic surgery. It took the latest in medical technology called a bionic heart. Now this is the second version. This is the version I was allowed to go home with, but the version that kept me alive for the first 3 months was something that sat outside of my bed, and I was on every form of life support possible, including a heart, because my heart had actually stopped and no longer started beating. So when people say, well, how did she survive without a heartbeat for that long? Even after CPR, my heart never restarted. And it's hard for people to understand how I'm still alive. Well, apparently, you can actually have no heartbeat and still be kept alive by putting oxygen in your blood. And people don't understand that. But you're pretty much just a vegetable. They don't know if you're brain dead or anything. So I had no heartbeat for a very long time. They did not know if I was going to be brain dead. I was in my coma for about 3 months. I finally came out, and they replaced and did another open heart surgery and put that in. That's called the left ventricular assist device. And I lived on that for 5 years. Now that device, there's something special you need to know about this. One of the reasons I share my story is heart disease and heart failure is literally the top leading killer of women. And the reason is because it's silent. We don't have the same symptoms as men. So when people say, how did you just drop dead in the ICU? It's because our symptoms can look something almost like a mini panic attack. That's why so many women die. They just die because we just don't get the one arm is numb. Sometimes we'll maybe get a little bit of a jaw, like my jaw aches, whereas the men will get the chest pain. So it's literally the leading killer of women. So the fact that I'm alive up on here on stage is a complete and utter miracle. Most women do not survive what just happened to me. So if you want to know where my passion comes from and my drive, that's where it comes from. Because this is no longer about me. I spent 5 years on this device. It was extremely uncomfortable, and because most women don't survive, that device is really suited for men, including the size. So I was on a lot of pain for 5 years, and I still am. After 5 years, I was finally listed for a heart transplant. I waited 1.5 years with my cell phone by my side and never being able to leave far from home or from my hospital or from my husband, because you have to be able to drop everything at a moment's notice and head straight to the hospital, not knowing if you'd survive. You have to be mentally prepared for that. Well, let me tell you, I kicked and screamed the whole time, and I did not get ready for this heart transplant until I would say a month before I finally embraced that I needed a heart transplant. So for 1.5 years, I'm like, I'm not going if I get called. I'm not going. Are you kidding me? You're not taking my heart. Like, you're going to put a new heart in me. Are you kidding? Like, no. But a month before, I finally came to peace with it. And I said, Cherie, look at how far you've come. You've already died. You already know heaven's beautiful. What if I just embraced where I am right now and just lived each moment to the fullest? I'm on this bionic heart, and honestly, it's such a risky device. Anything could happen to me at any second. So I chose to make those 5 years on that bionic heart, even though I was in so much pain. I chose to make it the best years of my life. I didn't know that I was going to live for 5 years on it. I didn't know that I was ever going to be listed for a heart transplant, but I had to live my best life with life support attached to me 24/7. And you know what I did? I started inspiring people. I never complained. Nobody ever heard me complain about my life attached to this device. People still came to me with their problems. I still slowly became the person everyone came to again. but I just lived my best life. And finally, in 2014, I received the gift of life by a 21-year-old. I'll never forget the call that came in. And I thought, it's here. It's showtime. And then I said to myself, wow, somebody just had to die for me to get this call. What do you do with that? How do you process that, right? And I said to myself, if I make it through this, there's going to be two of us from now on. So what next? Well, I made it through my heart transplant. I had complications, and I had to actually be on life support again for another 3 months. But I pulled through. And I pulled through with literally one of the healthiest hearts, an athletic heart. So I've again beat records. Most transplanted hearts beat over 100 beats a minute. Mine beats at 57 beats per minute. It's so healthy. Yeah, I really lucked out. But I came home in a wheelchair. I needed 3 people to just help me stand. So I lost the ability to do everything. I could not feed myself. I couldn't find my mouth. I was out of money. And I needed a business. What the heck are you going to do? You just had a heart put in you. You're in pain. You can't get yourself out of bed. And you just ran out of 7 years of savings. Fighting for your life how many times? And I thought, I need a freaking miracle. Like, this can't be it. I just made it this far. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I literally did not know how I was going to pay for my transplant meds. And I wrote my first book from my bed. I wrote it with one finger on my iPhone. I just laid it on my chest on a pillow and just used one finger. And I just wrote this book for other patients that were on that heart transplant book, just because I needed something to do with my time. And I'm like, I need to help the other people, because like, I'm blessed. I made it through my heart transplant and I'm home. I'm home. Like, we take that for granted. Every night when we get to go home, we take that for granted. Like, I was home after living in the hospital for like almost 7 years. And I just had to write this book. And if you guys read it, it's like the worst book. But I just addressed one problem that they had. Just one problem. And I just released it to this community of thousands of people that now have this bionic heart. And it just became a #1 bestseller. So that's how I wrote my #1 bestselling book. But I needed a way out. I needed to be able to create a business. You know, and I had every excuse in the book for why I couldn't do anything. I had no money. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand. I needed 3 people just to lift me out of bed. I couldn't get dressed. I could barely stand at the sink to brush my teeth. Like, I was in my pajamas, right? Like, and I need to build a business. How is this going to happen? And this miracle happened. And, here's a quote I have. So something happened where I said to myself, I have nothing to give anybody, but I do have a brand new beating heart. And based on my near-death story, I knew that I had something powerful to share. I knew I had a journey that not many get to live, experience and live to tell about it. So here's a quote from Oprah Winfrey. Anybody who has been able to live and go to the other side and come back, you have the greatest story to tell. And I kind of just held on to that and was like, what if somehow I could just share my message? And what if somehow I could believe in the power of everything that I learned during my near-death experience and everything that I'd learned about miracles and fighting on life support and believing in the unknown and daring to step into the unknown, daring to believe in something I couldn't see. as big as life. I couldn't see life ahead of me. I didn't know if I was going to live another day. What if I could believe that again in this next hurdle in my life? So my life had been saved, but now began the real journey. How was I going to live? And remember when I asked you at the start, if you had everything wiped from you, and by some miracle, you were given a second chance to do it all again, a clean slate, a whole new vision of what is possible in life. You just experienced all the regrets of how you used to live your life. How would you live it again if you had that chance? Your fears of getting on video. What if you all of a sudden had a second chance? Would you still let that fear of video stop you from sharing your heart this second time around? Would you still let that family member who may be blood, but they're not supporting you? Are you going to live your second life like that if you had that choice? Would you still let those same fears stop you? I want you all to think of everything that's allowed you to sit here today in this room. Whatever you've been through, family issues, debt, sleeping in cars. All right? What have you been through? Have you lost your job? Have you overcome addiction? Have you been abused? Have you been surrounded by people that didn't believe in you? Now is the time to stop all of that. You may not have died the way I did, but you have a choice. I had a choice. I had a choice. Do you understand that? I could have given up on life support. Lord knows I wanted to. It was a choice. That's why I'm still sitting here. The same doctors have worked on other patients that have been through less than what I've been through. And they're like, how did she survive? How is she still here? You can see why they want me to be their ambassador now, right? It's the fight. It's your will to live. How are you going to live this life? For me, personal branding was my way out. Why? Because personal branding for me is not just some little tactic to get you to buy my programs. Personal branding is life. It is life. Why? Because I was in a wheelchair. Why? Because I needed 3 people to help me get to brush my teeth when I started my brand. Do you understand that? People don't realize it because they saw me on Periscope. I was sitting in a wheelchair. Personal branding is who you are. I branded myself on who I am because that's all I had. I was no longer the tech CEO. I was no longer all the ways that we identify ourselves by what we do. This is why I don't ask people, what do you do? I say, who do you stand for? Who are you? What do you stand for? I want to know your heart. And I want you to know your heart. Because that's what's real. That's what's going to connect you to my heart. That's what's going to make me ultimately want to do business with you, or want to buy your program, or want to buy a house from you. At the end of the day, we are human. We are human. And that is our most powerful asset, is our heart. You can't deny it. We all experienced it this week. We all experienced it. So why, when we go out into the business world, why are we tightening back up, putting on our masks, and pretending to be something that we think we need to be because it looks good to somebody else. I said no. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not wasting my energy being something I'm not. Sorry. And guess what? You don't like it? There's 7 billion people in the world. Period. How are you going to live your life if you had a second chance? Right? Do you see where my strength comes from now? I may be soft-spoken, but inside, like, I am unbreakable. You cannot break me. You cannot. I'm going to surround myself by people who nurture me, who appreciate who I am, who will love me whether I can't stand very long because of my pain. I'm going to surround myself by people who respect that I was a tech CEO and that I have brains, but I don't need to lead by that all day, every day. I don't need to lead by how smart I am. I don't. Why? That's how I'm choosing to live my life of no regrets. I'm not playing by that rule anymore, and I'm trusting that the new way I'm playing my game is going to shoot me up like a rocket ship faster than if I were to play this game. Why? Because I stand out. I stand out. I always stand out because I'm the one going into a crowd. You know, maybe it's online, goofy as can be. But then the next day I'll be like, bam, here I am on Forbes. You know what I mean? Because I just would rather do the action and show you what I'm capable of. But in my presence, I'm going to show you who I am, not what I do, who I am. And the right people are going to come to you. The right people who care about you, and the right people that should something happen to you, like it did with me, they won't take off. See, that's what happens when you don't stay true to your core values. You surround yourself by people that, by some chance, you need their help, and they're not there. Again, how are you going to live your life should you be given a second chance? Right now, today, this moment, you guys here with me, I am your wake-up call. Do you hear me? I am your wake-up call. Whatever it is, all of you have a different story. There is something that is holding you back. And I'm honored to still be alive here today, to share with you that now is the time to stand up. Now is the time to rise up into the leadership that you know you still have not fully stepped into. There is still more of you to share with the world. How are you going to live this moment from this moment on? What are you going to do with your life? Who are you going to be? To create my brand, all I did was I put myself in a circle and I surrounded myself with what is my ideal life. That's what I call my branding blueprint. I just said, who am I going to surround myself with? What am I going to surround myself with? What are the organizations? What am I going to do with my life? What's important to me? That's all I did to create my brand. There was no business model. There was no business model. It's how am I going to live my best life and have zero regrets? And the rest was trust. You cannot fail. You cannot fail when you are vibrating at your highest frequency. It's impossible. It's impossible. That's why entrepreneurs, sometimes they talk about fail. What's a failure? That's impossible. What do you want to create in this world? Start there. That is how I created my brand. That is how I'm able to stand on stage with elite entrepreneurs. That is how I'm able to finally say, I deserve to be on this stage. I may be doing things differently, but I deserve to be alongside some of these top entrepreneurs. Because this is how I'm choosing to create. I don't need to follow what everybody else is doing. What is it special that makes you different from all the rest, whatever field you're in? Most of you don't know me as being a tech CEO, do you? No. Even Jen doesn't, and she knows me for years now. You don't know that I was a tech CEO. But if I were to play the old game, I would have been leading with that this whole time. As I said, Periscope launched right after my heart transplant. So when I couldn't walk, I just turned to live streaming. You guys have been hearing and learning about live streaming all weekend. This is why. It connected me to thousands of people all over the world. Brandon and everybody else is not just trying to kick your butt saying, do this for no reason. It got me my life back. I couldn't walk, I couldn't leave my house the way you can. But this was my gateway to the world. Australia, India, Philippines, Finland, France, Mexico. I have clients from all over the world who embraced me in my pajamas. My pajamas. How many of you don't want to go live because your makeup isn't perfect? Bill raised his hand. Right? Why? Why did I do that? Choice, right? It could either be an excuse, or I could just do it anyway. I created daily content every single day. You guys have been hearing about that all week. I used every platform possible. Again, I couldn't leave the house. I needed to connect with people. I needed them to feel my heart. And just to remind you guys, I still did not have a business. But I had a tribe growing. I had people that believed in me from all over the world when my own family didn't believe in me. To this day, I still have family that don't think I had cancer. Do you know what that feels like after 6 months of excruciating hell of chemo? And they still look me dead in the face and say, you didn't have cancer. My online community became my family. And I went from 0 followers to 45,000 in a very, very short period of time. Again, my heart transplant was 3 years ago. Most of that, I would say, happened in a year and a half. Just by sharing my heart. I didn't want to tell people that I was a tech CEO because I didn't want anybody asking me to build anything for them. I couldn't build. I couldn't sit at a computer. I want you guys to know I built my entire brand not from a computer, from that phone sitting right there. And I was in bed. Nobody understood. I was in bed the whole time. So when I land myself on a top 40 millennial list, millennial, active, driven millennials with way more energy than me, somebody that had just been in and out of the hospital for 7 years. I do not take that lightly. You want to know why I landed on that list? Because they all see me. Why do they see me? Because I've been creating that content. That's the power of social media. That's the power of showing up. That's the power of believing in yourself. And that's the power of pushing through any obstacle that you have. It's real. It's real. I'm not up here sharing stats with you. I'm telling you, I got my whole life back. I was terrified of live streaming. And then add on there that I didn't look all dressed up. And I did it anyway. In that first year, I made $100,000 from my pajamas. Grateful. Grateful. Because what did that was me making a commitment to show up and the heart connection I had with people just like you. That's all it was. Still no business plan. Still no tactics. Bare minimum. My bed, my phone, and just a desperate plea to get my life back. And nobody knowing what I was going through in between live streams. Nobody knowing the tears, throwing up mass initial doses of heart rejection, anti-rejection meds. You're under a lot of high doses in the beginning. And I used to cry to my husband. I'd be like, I can't go on. I can't go on. I'd be like, you have to get the basket. I'd get the basket, I'd throw up, clean myself up, and go live. And you know how I did it? What I found was the more I shared of my heart, it all came back to me. So while I may have been in tears in between, the minute I shared my heart and pressed go live, everybody from around the world fed me. And by me giving, I ended up getting tenfold back. And everybody online helped me heal. They helped give me family back. They helped me get my voice back. They had me laughing so hard that my lung capacity came back. Because when I first went live, I was on a ventilator for so long that I actually had trouble breathing. But they forced me to laugh so loud that my breathing came back after months. Like when I say online, social media, personal branding, and every single thing that Brandon Adams teaches is real, you get results, and you will get more back than you could ever possibly imagine. That is not an understatement. For me to be able to sit here today and share this message in front of Brandon, in front of everybody that, just means the world to him, is a big deal for me. It really is. Because I'm not just really a testimony. I'm just a walking example of everything he teaches. Most of this year was spent building relationships, which again, you all have learned all weekend. It's all about building relationships. Brandon's been a huge help to me. You guys met Brian D. Evans up in the corner. Huge help for me, CEO of Influensive. They took me in like family and just really helped me get my story out there. They're the ones that gave me my first chance at media writing, so now I've got other publications looking for me to write. Grant Cardone, you guys probably know Caleb Maddox. Caleb Maddox is actually the one that got me out of bed when I couldn't walk. He was the one that helped me to get he would have this Periscope live stream, and it would be the 10 things you have to get done every morning before 12. And for most entrepreneurs, it's like, going to the gym, setting your daily goals for the day, how many calls you're going to make, this and that. And I remember Caleb chuckling because I said, one of mine was, I checked off that I got out of bed. And he chuckled because how old was he at the time? 8? When he first came on, right? So he's like chuckling. And I said, no, I'm serious because I just had a heart transplant. And he was like, wow, okay. And every day, Caleb and his dad, Matt Maddox, they're the ones that got me out of bed to even have the level of success I have today. And success to me is being alive and strong. That's success. So these relationships really helped take my brand to another level. It's real. Those relationships ended up turning into partnerships. It's how I landed on the Dr. Oz show, the morning show. It's how I'm partners now with Columbia University, New York Presbyterian, Influensive, a lot more on there that are coming for next year that I just haven't publicly put out yet, but a lot of partnerships. People have really embraced the fact that I am a walking version of my brand. And so what that does is it allows an organization or an entrepreneur to look at me and say, she would be great for this because she's got videos, she can be on stage, she's not afraid of cameras, she knows how to tell a story, she knows how to write, she writes for the media. All these little things that you're being told to build your brand are allowing you to become one massive package that you can now just be like, this is me. So this is what's allowing me to partner with such massive organizations. And again, it's a win-win scenario. So they get something out of it, and I get access to millions of other people. So next year for me is going to be all about deepening those relationships and actually getting stuff out into the market. For me, personal branding has really just been the lead up to stepping into leadership. And I'm a big proponent of leadership. It's my mission to support leaders, leaders that are game changers, that are innovators, that need the support they need to actually push humanity forward. This is my mission. And this took me a long time to come to terms with because I didn't know what to do with my near-death experience. But what I've learned is that in order for me to have the impact I want to have on the world, it's going to require leaders. Leaders that are fearless and leaders that are willing to push through their fears. So if there's anything I can do to help unlock them from anything holding them back, I know that the world needs them. So most of my focus, I have decided, is to be put into innovative leaders. And while I still do work with patients and other people that need my love and my guidance, those grieving the loss of a loved one, I will still do that. But I know now why I've been drawn to leaders like Brandon, why I've been drawn to leaders like, Brian D. Evans and all these people. It's because I belong. It's because I'm here to support them. And I really honestly believe that if we all pull together, we can really create the world that all of us want to see. Because I'm already living my ideal life. You guys are a part of that. But it's also my responsibility now to radiate that out because it's not just about me. But it starts with me. And it starts with all of you. So, again, building a personal brand was the best and most rewarding decision I've ever made in business. Ever. I really want you guys to understand that no matter what industry you're in, build that personal brand. It's going to take your life and your business and your family to a whole other level. It's a necessity. If you want to do big things in this world, that is the way to go. So here's my website. The best way to reach me is on Twitter. But I really just want to share with you guys that although I've shared my story, I really hope that I was able to inspire you more than anything to understand that life is a gift. It is a gift. Life is a miracle. And if you've made it this far, that is just the biggest gift you've been given. The biggest gift. It's not something else. It's not someone else. It's you. You are the gift. You are what's going to save yourself and others. It is all up to you, and it's all a choice. I had a choice of whether or not I wanted to live, and I chose to live. And now my life is not about me at all. Personal branding will make it look like it's about you. It is not. It is not. Personal branding is my vehicle to reach masses of people. And my vision is to impact 1 billion people around the world, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And it's not about me, and it's not about my fears. It will be done. And Brandon knows it. So thank you guys all so much for listening to me. I know that was quite an emotional little journey, but it's something I feel is very important, and I hope that you never forget this story. Whatever doubts you have, whatever fears you have that come up in your future or now, please remember this story, and please know that I see the beauty in every single one of you in this room. Nothing can stop you. You are unstoppable. You are 100% unstoppable. You are more powerful than you know yourself to be. I know your power, and you have it. You just need to use it. Thank you, guys.
A round of applause. Stay up here.
Did that
give
just
me
take
a
like
hug.
3 hours? Thank you.
So
I have no idea how much time
we're
it just took.
we're gonna talk a little bit.
Oh, we are?
You're not gonna get off that easy, because I know what everybody's thinking and they want to ask you. And
Oh, where am I going here?
okay, first off, I love you. That was like I was in tears, by the way. Oh man, I personally want to know. I mean, I asked on my podcast show, and I know they want me to ask, and we'll do a couple questions. We have like 9 minutes. That was amazing. Who's inspired? Who's like driven to take action now and not let life pass them by, not let opportunities, like when you said that I died, and then it made me realize I'm thinking in my life, what if I died? And look at, did I give it my all? Did I give it everything I had? And the one thing, if you can share, tell me what it was like when you died. And I know everybody's going to go get the book. I'm going to make them get the book. But I share with the audience, because I mean, you shared on my show, but share now, what was that like?
So like when I first died? Like
Yeah,
what?
when you first died.
I felt free, to be honest. I felt, the first thought was, wow, that was easy. That was really easy. Like, I'm free. I was free from the heaviness of life. I was free of the burdens, the judgments, the opinions of others, the shame of having cancer, the guilt of ruining people's lives by having cancer. Yeah, that was like my first thought, is I was free. I was no longer a burden on anyone. And so when I first crossed over, and I had actually met these beings, so I was never alone. So if you guys are wondering what happens on the other side, you're not alone. You're totally welcomed instantly. And so I was greeted by, I call them my welcome committee. And the first thing I said to them was, I know where I am. I know I died. And I don't want to go back. I just felt so free. It was beautiful. I felt the love. If you were just to like close your eyes and just picture what life would be like if all the people that have judgment around you, if that were just gone, if you were just relieved of that stress and that worry, I just felt as light as a feather. I felt connected to everything, like all was just one. We were just all one. Yeah, and I just felt so free. So my initial reaction was like, I don't want to go back there. Like, number one, I don't even have a body to go back to. And number two, why would I want to go back and feel that weight again? You know? And I honestly figured everyone around me was just better off without me. I mean, which is crazy. But, yeah, and then what happened was they wouldn't let me, they really weren't answering me, basically. And I started getting frustrated. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's go to heaven. And they were just giving me time to kind of rethink that decision. I'm like, no, I'm pretty much clear. I'm not going back to that. And I started getting a little frustrated, but they were giving me all this time. And before I knew it, I mean, should I give details?
Please.
Okay.
For my own selfish reasons.
When I first crossed over, I knew I had died. I was free from form, so I no longer had a body. And I was floating around in this white, empty space. And the first thing I said was, oh. And I called out this name, and it was the name of my meditation teacher, the one that I had said that I had went to visit the day before I died. What I didn't mention earlier is that when I did go to see her, once she got me to stop bawling, she told me a story. And she said, at the end of her story, she said to me, sometimes in life, our soul has a choice, is given a choice of whether or not they want to stay or go. I was like, why is she telling me that story? And knowing how intuitive she was, and knowing my past experience with her, I knew it wasn't an accident that she told me that story. And I got a little nervous because I was like, why is she telling me that story? But when I died and I found myself floating around in white space, the first thing I did was I called out to her. And I said, oh, I know now why you told me that story. I'm at that place where my soul is being given a choice of whether or not I want to stay or go. And I just kind of boldly said, I want to stay. I was like, that's what she was talking about. That's my choice. And that's when I had met this welcoming committee. And the committee actually ended up being at the bottom of the ocean, the bottom of the basement floor. And it was dark, but everything is different in heaven. So you're not having like the human fears of, oh my God, I'm drowning at the bottom of the water. I could breathe on the bottom of the water, but we were at the basement floor and it was dark but slightly lit. So I knew I was actually surrounded in a circle by, I think it was 6 or 9 beings. I want to say 9, but I really feel like it was 6. And I was in the middle floating, just above the basement floor. and they were surrounding me in a complete circle, and they were all dressed in all black, almost like a scuba diver, except without like the oxygen tank. So it was all black, but then it also extended over their face. So you couldn't see that they had hair, and you couldn't see their face. It was completely covered. You couldn't see eyes. You couldn't see if it was male or female. But they looked the shape of a human, and then off their feet looked like the scuba diver fins. So they were just hovering, and we were all just hovering, and it was just pure, still, and quiet. And I didn't feel scared by them. I felt safe. You know, it was kind of just like, oh, hey guys. Like, I know where I am. We're all good. I know where I am. But they wouldn't let me continue on. And I remember getting so frustrated. And finally I said to them, come on, like, I'm ready to go. I fully understand what happened to me, and I'm fully embracing that I died, and I'm ready to go on. Still nothing. And then I realized they weren't talking to me because they were talking to me telepathically. So I got really still, and I just tuned into my intuition, and all of a sudden I could hear them. I was like, oh, okay, I see how this works. Everything's telepathic over here. So I just would communicate with them that way. And what I heard back was that they were going to give me time to make that decision. And before I knew it, I found myself in this whirlwind of time and space collapsing. So everything we know about time and space and reality just completely went into a big swirl and just collapsed. Everything collapsed, and I was just shot out into the best way I can describe it. It's so hard to describe my near-death experience in words. It is the most difficult thing, and every time I speak it, I feel like I'm not doing it justice. But over the years, I've found words to slightly match it, but just know whatever I'm saying is completely diluting the experience, which is why you really just have to hear it from my heart. But I found myself in multiple dimensions at once, and I realized I was actually experiencing my life review, but that it wasn't just a life review of this lifetime, it was a life review of all lifetimes and all possibilities, which is very hard for your brain to comprehend at this point. But that's what I went through. And I experienced myself as playing different roles, living in different parts of the world, India, Japan, China. I experienced myself as a whale. I experienced myself, and not like a trippy thing. Like, I lived it. I lived it. Like how this world feels real, I lived it, And a lot of times people ask me, like, is it similar to somebody doing like, LSD or something? I'm like, no, it's totally different because you are actually living it the way I'm feeling emotions right now, the way this just feels so real being with all of you. I had to experience it across multiple lifetimes. And that in itself blows your mind wide open. Like just the confines of space and time just no longer, even to this day, exist for me because I've been thrown into those other dimensions. So I've seen it and experienced it, so it's real. It's now a part of my reality. So what that does, when you come back, I'll talk about that in a minute, but basically that's what I experienced, and what it was this life review. So I actually also experienced my own funeral. I felt all the people in my life crying. I felt the emotions. It was gut-wrenching. And one of the things I share now with people that I used to be uncomfortable sharing this, but I do share that when a loved one passes on or a loved one is in the process of transitioning, like maybe in a hospital or at home, you don't want to be bawling and crying out of fear, because it's actually, we feel it. We feel it on the other side. They're feeling it in the transition. And so out of guilt, they're hanging on for you. And I don't know if you've ever heard, sometimes families struggle because their loved one keeps hanging on, like in the hospital, right? Like they've made the preparations, but they keep hanging on. And it's like this drawn out, like, and the family's like, what do we do? So they'll call me in, and I'll go in and I'll assess it, and I'll be like, what's this family's member's story? And I'll be like, or I'll assess the family, and I'll be like, these two need to leave the room. It's hard to tell a family that, but I'll be like, these two need to leave the room. You need to say this words to your loved one, and after I leave, the person passes away. So it's real. It's real. Like, I'm not just saying that. It's real. The veil between this world and that world, there is no veil. It's not even thin. There is no veil. Your loved ones are all around you. They're here right now. There is no veil. And one of the gifts I have now is that I am a part of all of these worlds at once. But it's taken 7 years to finally be able to be present with you guys and know the difference, but it allows me to actually utilize all the other dimensions to do what I need to do. But that's a whole other rabbit hole.
So before I ask the next question, I think coming from everyone, the experience and what you just given us is something we will never forget for the rest of our lives. And thank you, because I mean, can you guys agree? This completely, opens all of our eyes about everything. And thank you so much. You've impacted so many people. When you woke up and you came back, tell me what was going through your mind.
Yeah, so basically the process of waking up was a whole journey in itself, because I went through my life review, and then basically what happened was I was shown the truth of everything about life. I was shown why I got sick. I was shown why other people get sick. I was shown why there's poverty. I was shown why there's suicide. I was shown every question anybody's ever asked about how the world works. And so I realized that there was a common theme between all of my lives. Now, even though I was playing a different role, it was the same core issue that traveled with me from life to life. So the same core issue that, we all have, there's just something from our lives and our past that we've been trying to shake, our whole lives. There's just one thing, maybe it's a relationship dynamic that you can't seem to get away from, or self-doubt or something like that. It actually traveled with me, whether I was a whale or I lived in India or Japan. I realized it was my soul, in all those different lifetimes, and that I would never be free of that until I cleared the core issue in my soul. So what happened was, after the life review, I realized my choice was, they gave me another chance, do you want to go back? And so my choice now was, do I go back and clear the issue with the people I already know in this world? Or do I move on and risk maybe a worse, more struggle life under different scenarios, different circumstances, different people, it playing out the same core issue, but maybe in a worse case of abuse. Or maybe, do you know what I'm saying? Like, so it was like, well, let me just go back, since I know the people already from the life I just left, and just let me make it my mission to clear that issue so that it doesn't carry with me after I die again to other lifetimes, because it's just going to repeat. And so in that moment, I changed my mind, and I told my welcoming committee that I wanted to go back, that I was going to clear my soul coming back. And that began the process of re-emerging back into this world, which that's a whole book in itself. What it took to be rebirthed back into this dimension. I now know why it's so traumatic for babies. I mean, it's you're really going from one dimension into another, and I was suffocating. It actually took multiple tries to get me back.
Wow. I don't know what to say. So I'm gonna one more thing, and then we're gonna go to a goal-setting exercise, which I think is perfect for after this. And I won't take questions because I know everybody has a question. But you'll be here the rest of the day, correct?
Yeah.
And we're gonna hang out and talk more. I just thank you so much. Like everything you've given, your story, all this. By the way, this will never be forgotten, and it's recorded for you to use for everything. Like this is, I don't know if you ever gone this deep. Maybe you have.
Yeah, not recently. No, I don't.
Yeah, so it's going to help a lot of people, and it's helping me right now. And so I want you, for all these people in the audience, everybody has parts of their life right now. They're probably at a crossroads, whether they're going to go this route or this route, whether they're going to start down this endeavor, this business plan. I mean, we constantly have decisions to make.
Yeah.
And what would be your best advice from, I mean, literally, life is too short not to. You literally died and came back and had a second chance. What is your advice, the general, to everybody here?
Yeah, my advice, my personal advice is to, it sounds so cliche, and this is the problem with coming back from the afterlife, is that like sometimes what I want to say feels cliche, but it's just like so real, you know. I want you to trust in yourself. I want you to trust that your highest vibration is your soul. It's your soul speaking to you. And how that looks like in business is opportunities will show up, right? I've had a lot of opportunities presented to me. I mean, one was a huge movie this year, huge movie, that I ended up saying no to. That was hard. It was really hard, like working with top people. It was very hard. But I had to sit down and say, am I taking this because I don't believe I can do something bigger, that I have more control over, that is really going to be aligned with my highest passion, right? Am I taking it because I fear there's nothing else that's going to show up? And that's what it came down to. And it was really hard. But I had to follow the highest vibration, is that this and who I am and how the story has to come through me, that I have control over that. Because this message is not any other message. And if I share this using some other channel where they have their own agenda and their own money and profit that they're going to take, and I'll be left over with nothing, I have just done a disservice to myself, my soul, my heart donor, my doctors, every single person that saved my life. I've done a disservice to Brandon as my coach, because I've made a decision that really didn't feel in my highest alignment, which meant I wasn't trusting myself and my power. So a lot of times in business or in life, we're confronted with opportunities or crossroads where we're just stuck. It's like hitting a wall. And you're like, I don't know what to do next. And that is when you have to go within. You have to get silent. Your power is in your silence. I promise you. I promise you. Like my power, as much as I love working with Brandon, my power and what's going to take me to a rocket ship is the final say has to be mine. He's always going to be in my life. I'm always going to make sure I'm right next to him, right? But if I don't let the power come from within me, I will fail trying to do something that somebody else maybe wants me to do, but it's not in alignment. The alignment is the key, and that's what you have to strive for. That, I promise you, is what's accelerating me, not just in life, in business. Miracles have happened. Like, I'm not running some huge, massive $1 million company right now, and yet I am surrounded by multiple 9-figure earners every freaking day. And I'm like, what is it that they see in me? I think they see the belief. Do you know what I mean?
100%. So I believe in you, and we all believe in you. And to wrap this up, just for you to know, one of the people in the room yesterday is a good friend of mine, and he's really good friends with Oprah Winfrey. And they speak together, and they're always with each other. I'm going to take this clip, with your permission, and send it to him and do my best to get it into Oprah's hands, because I really think you should be on Oprah. Thank you so much. Round of applause.